Welcome to Hack the Entrepreneur, the show which reveals the fears, habits, and inner battles behind big-name entrepreneurs and those on their way to joining them. Now here is your host, John Naster.
Are you running an e-commerce business, doing amazing sales, but being crushed under the holiday volumes? Not if you were using Whiplash, modern fulfillment built to scale. As a Hack the Entrepreneur listener, you will get a $100 credit when you sign up today. Go to getwhiplash.com/hack. Hey, this is Hack the Entrepreneur. Thank you so much for joining me again today. I'm your host, John Naster, but you can call me Johnny. My guest today is an Emmy Award-Winning Media Producer, best-selling author, and an entrepreneur. During my guest's final year of university, while traveling through Europe, she started a blog that accidentally became a business and has since grown to become a full-blown media company called She Takes on the World. She's been featured in countless magazines, websites, and TV shows, including, but not limited to, CNN, Forbes, Mashable, and The Wall Street Journal. She is also the author of She Takes on the World, The Conquer Kit, and her just-released planner, Conquer Your Fear, the ultimate planner to get more done, grow your business, and achieve your dreams. Now, let's hack Natalie MacNeil. All right, before we get into the interview today, I want to just take a moment and thank today's sponsor, Whiplash, modern fulfillment built to ship. You're running an e-commerce business, and Whiplash is your virtual warehouse. You send your products to a Whiplash facility, and when your customers order, Whiplash ships it to them, just like you would, but faster and cheaper. They have warehouse facilities in Detroit, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and London, England. Whiplash will get your products to your customers faster, no matter where they live in the world. Plus, Whiplash connects easily with major shopping carts like Shopify, Magento, and Bandcamp, so you can get up and running faster and easier. Remember, if you're being crushed under holiday volumes, this should be a time to celebrate, not to feel like you're in over your head. And you wouldn't be if you were using Whiplash. Contact Whiplash now so this goes down in history as the last holiday season that you shipped for yourself. Don't get stressed out. Get Whiplash. Go to getwhiplash.com/hack right now. And exclusively for being a Hack the Entrepreneur listener, you are going to get a $100 credit for getting started today. That's getwhiplash.com/hack. We are back with another episode of Hack the Entrepreneur. And today we have a very, very, very special guest, Natalie. Welcome to the show.
Hey, John. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely my pleasure. I think this is going to be a lot of fun.
It sure is. Fellow Canadian.
Exactly. Although you've moved down to the States on me, but that's okay. Still a Canadian.
I know. still Canadian. Always Canadian.
Exactly. All right, Natalie, let's dive into this.
Sounds good.
Natalie, you wear many, many hats, but today we're talking to Natalie, the entrepreneur. So, Natalie, as an entrepreneur, can you tell me what is the one thing that you do that you feel has been the biggest contributor to your successes so far?
I would say that my morning routine, what I do in the first 30 minutes of every single day, is what has got me furthest, fastest. I don't know where I would be without those first 30 minutes of my day.
All right. Well, I guess we need to know what this is.
Yeah.
We can't leave that hanging.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let me dive into this. So when I get up in the morning, instead of turning to my phone, like a lot of people do, my phone's always on airplane mode. Every single night I'm far away from my bed. It helps you get a better sleep. And then in the morning, instead of turning to my phone, I do a very quick meditation and yoga practice. And people often say, oh, well, I don't have a lot of time in the morning. You can do a 30-second meditation, a 60-second meditation. So for me, it's a rhythmic breathing series that really gets me ready to dive into the rest of the day, stretching, like moving my body. And then I always have a green smoothie and a bulletproof coffee with the brain octane oil in it from Bulletproof. And that gets me a lot more alert in the morning, and I feel helps me to get laser focused. And then I do take a lot of supplements, and there are a lot of little biohacks that I do starting in the morning and then throughout the day that allows me to achieve peak productivity and performance in the work that I do. And I think that for a lot of entrepreneurs, especially ones that maintain a very busy schedule, which I think is a lot of us, sometimes we think that the things that will make us most productive are these like external factors. And if we can just, clear certain things away. I know for people who work from home, they always say, oh, well, you shouldn't have dishes out, or you shouldn't have a pile of laundry that's within sight because you're going to want to clean up or do things around your house. And I've always found that it's the internal factors that are the biggest drivers of entrepreneurial success. It starts with what you fuel your body with, making sure that you're getting enough water throughout the day. So I track my water intake. And I would say that it's those things that I've done in my life, those tweaks and that morning routine that has laid the foundation for everything else I've been able to achieve.
Wow. I like this. So let's work our way backwards. How much water do you drink? What's
I usually drink about 12 glasses a day.
Wow.
I'm tracking that right now. So in my new planner, I have like a water tracker, and I mean, everyone should do the 8 glasses, but I usually get up to about 12.
Nice. I love it. And this morning, like meditation that you do, the 30 to 60 second one, where did this come from? Like, is this something that we could follow, or is this something you made up?
Yeah, actually, I have a free library of meditations. There are well over 100 there. That's on my website, soulseconds.com. And that's a meditation platform that I've built for people who want to meditate in 60 seconds or less. So it is something that you could go and I'll guide you through it. But for me, it's usually one of the morning meditations that you would find there, or the meditation for energy, which also has a mudra with it. And mudras are hand and finger positionings that tap into certain parts of the body's meridian energy system. So usually first thing in the morning, I do this one where my arms are up in the air, like in a V, and you kind of make a thumbs up sign, the thumbs up on both hands, and then your hands are like up in a V, and those thumbs, you're sort of visualizing them being plugged into this energy source. And the breathing for that one is breath of fire. So it's a nostril breathing technique that has you do very short inhalations and exhalations. So it sounds something like, and I do that for about 60 seconds in the morning, and it just activates the energy in your body and allows you to get up with more energy, with more focus, with more clarity. And I have realized that a lot of really successful entrepreneurs start their day that way as well. Now I know Tony Robbins is a really big fan of doing that, and of his rhythmic breathing techniques that he'll do first thing in the morning. There are so many health benefits, and especially for us entrepreneurs who need to be able to dive right into our work and stay laser focused.
Nice. I love it. I love it. And somewhere in there, I glanced over the bulletproof coffee that you drink every morning.
Yes.
If people don't know, if you're out there listening and you're like, what are you talking about? I will post a link in the show notes to the Dave Asprey. He's the creator of Bulletproof Coffee, and he was on the show a few months back. And ever since, he completely convinced me during that episode that I need to drink it. So I
And have you been, John?
Yes.
You do. Okay. Have you found that it's made a difference for you?
Yeah, it's so good. Because I typically didn't like to eat breakfast anyways, but I think I was just like under energized, but doing it anyways. And that just totally pulls me through.
Yeah. And I mean, the bulletproof
It's awesome.
diet is a really great one to follow as well. I think we need to focus more on fueling ourselves to give us that focus and that those productive bursts that we need as entrepreneurs. I just talked to so many entrepreneurs who are like, oh, I have no energy, or I'm burnt out, or I don't know how much longer I can sustain the schedule that I have for. And I mean, I maintain a pretty busy schedule as well. I tend to work in sprints, and I will take that downtime. Like every 3 to 4 months, I'm usually taking a bit of downtime to just recharge. But I think that recharging every single day is a habit that we all need to get into.
Absolutely. 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 So this is like Natalie MacNeil of 2016, the successful Canadian moved down to LA and New York. But you didn't just start here, right? You've been at this a while. So we need to go back if we can, Natalie.
Absolutely.
Because looking back, there seems to be this time in every entrepreneur's life when they've realized sort of one of two things, that they had this calling to make this huge difference in the world, or they found that they just couldn't work for somebody else anymore. So Natalie, I would love it if you could tell us which side of the fence you see yourself on, and then take us back to when you discovered this about yourself.
So I am a lifelong entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur since I had my first lemonade stand, which wasn't really a lemonade stand. I expanded my little lemonade empire to sell. I would sell pretty much anything as a kid. When I was like 11, I sold stationery and gifts door to door, and I just loved selling. So I always had that drive. I always thought I would do something different. I didn't really resonate with, especially not with office jobs, but I went through the period of time where I wanted to be an astronaut as a kid, and even into my teenage years, I thought that would be really cool and something that would allow me to contribute in a big way to the world. And then I went through a period where I thought I would be a lawyer, because all of my guidance counselors and teachers in high school were like, oh, you do so well in school, like you should really be a lawyer. And I just started to believe that maybe that was the path I needed to take. And it wasn't that I really wanted to be a lawyer. It was just that I couldn't hear my own inner voice, because the voices of everybody else around me were just drowning out my voice. So when I was in university, I decided I would take a trip to Europe. I was getting to the end of being in university, the end of my degree. And I went on this backpacking trip through Europe, and I was in the Czech Republic, and I was on this road trip, and I was listening to the song "The World Is Mine" by David Guetta. And at the same time as I was listening to that, I drove by a giant globe that was like 2 stories high that said, "The world is yours." And it was in that moment that I absolutely knew I needed to follow my heart and build a business. Everyone thought it was crazy that I would not take a job after university, that I was planning on creating my own job. I don't come from a family of entrepreneurs. There were definitely a lot of critics who were like, what are you doing? But I just knew in that moment that that is the path I had to take. And that is also where the seed of inspiration for She Takes on the World came from, was in that moment with the giant globe, "The world is yours." And then I started She Takes on the World as just a little blog just a few weeks after that, actually. And it has grown way beyond a blog into what is now a 7-figure media company.
Wow. So that is your first official, besides like selling things at 11 years old, door to door. This is your first official like business.
Well, I would actually say it's my accidental business. It's not what I intended to do after university. So actually, I ended up starting a business out of university that was a media and marketing business with some partners that completely failed after a few months. Like, it wasn't working. Side note, definitely be careful with who you choose to partner with. And I think that is such a critical decision that every entrepreneur makes. And I know a lot of other people who have had business partners at some point who have learned that lesson. And I'm glad it was a lesson I learned early on. So that didn't work out, but that paved the way for me to end up working with my business partner that I had in Imaginarius, which was the other media company that I had, where my business partner and I went on to win an Emmy for work that we did with the National Film Board. And that, I would say, was like that was really my first business, if you don't count some of the other ones that were like smaller that I had as a teenager, or that one that I had right out of university. Also, while I was in university, I ran a customer service auditing company working with a lot of big telecommunications players in Canada, where I would audit customer experience. And that actually taught me a lot of really valuable lessons too. It's not something I was planning on doing forever. It was something I planned on doing while I was in university because it paid me a lot of money and it was fairly flexible. So that's sort of my my adventures in business building earlier on. And She Takes on the World was just a little blog that I started writing while I was traveling the world and working on building a business out of university. So it was just about that journey. And I had, a dozen readers when I started out, and then that grew into a few dozen readers, and then hundreds of readers, and then thousands of readers. And now, our reach is hundreds of thousands around the world. And it's become a company in and of itself. And I decided to make it my full-time focus back in 2012.
Wow.
Because it had just taken on a life of its own. And I really believe in honoring that momentum when it's there.
Yeah. So that's interesting. So the way you say it's accidental, you were blogging while traveling the world and starting a business, and it kind of, so like how do you think something catches on like that without it getting your focus? And then, do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I do think that part of it was, quote unquote lucky. If you want to think sometimes it's luck, I believe that things happen for a reason. And at the time, there weren't a lot of women blogging about business, especially young women. The things that young women were blogging about were mostly in the vein of fashion and beauty and lifestyle. And I read one day, there was an article, I don't remember what media outlet it was in. It was in one of the major media outlets. And it was by a gentleman who was talking about, where are all the women's voices in blogging? And he was talking specifically about business blogging and how there aren't a lot of women covering some of the key things that need to be covered in like business and leadership. And at the time, there was a small community of women who were blogging about business, and a lot of us responded to that article. But I do think that I was in the right place at the right time. And I had this vision for this blog, and I started it like the same day. I didn't wait. I didn't wait until I had the perfect looking blog. I didn't wait until I had it professionally designed. I just went on to Blogger and started this blog and wrote a post all in one day. I believe in the power of now, and I'm still that way today. So all of those things, I would say, is what helped it to catch on. It was like just being in the right place at the right time, not waiting, diving in, just getting started. And then I was able to connect with a lot of key players in the media industry through Twitter, actually. And being an early adopter of Twitter back when it was mostly a business community on Twitter, when Twitter had launched, there were a lot of entrepreneurs, and I made a lot of great connections there. And one of those connections was with Forbes, and they invited me to be a contributor on their platform. And that's when things really started to take off.
wow, Twitter was so awesome back then.
Twitter was so awesome back then. I'm still such a big fan of like Twitter years ago. And I would say that some platforms like Facebook, I think it's amazing now because it drives a lot of leads to our business. And I appreciate what it's become and how I'm able to share with my audience that way. But for Twitter, I'm like, I feel like the best days are behind us.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but it's still the place where I have got the most media exposure and made the most connections in the media industry that allowed me to be featured in a lot of top magazines and entrepreneurial media outlets. And that's really how I got that early exposure that allowed me to grow She Takes on the World into what it is today.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like Facebook can bring you more people, but it's those one-on-one connections that Twitter still to this day can make for you because you can talk to anybody who's on there.
And I still use it. I still use it for that. And, Twitter, as much as some people are like, oh, I'm totally done with Twitter, it is still driving those media relationships because platforms like Instagram, that's not somewhere I'm going to go to connect with an editor of a magazine. I'm not going to go and comment on their like personal photos and things like that. It doesn't make as much sense as Twitter does, where I'm able to comment on a very specific article that they've just published. And I can retweet that and share an opinion and start to have that person at least know who I am because I'm commenting on their stuff. And then we're able to start to organically build that relationship. And I still do that on Twitter. So for anyone who's like, Twitter is so over, it's so not over, not yet. And it is still a good platform for media relationships.
It really, truly is. I don't actually know if it's good for much else, but but just relationships. Like I've had guests on from there. I've been on other people's shows and blogs because of that. It's really cool for that. You get direct access to people. So this is interesting because that was, say, about 8 or 9 years ago, right? You accidentally started this business, which turned out to be a huge, massive project and business now.
Yeah.
So I'd love to sort of take it to projects now, because I'm sure that with what you have going with She Takes on the World, that it's changed. You probably don't accidentally just start things anymore.
No.
So
everything's a lot more intentional now.
Exactly. And you just released a brand new book, Conquer Your Year. It's an ultimate planning book for people's goals for the year. So I would love to know sort of what the process, like let's take that as a project, because that's a big project, taking on a new book and then releasing it. But I would love to know what your process is, Natalie, and whether that's a written process or just an internal gut process. But what's the process you go through right now to determine when it's not just you anymore, but also your team around you, when yours and your team's time, energy, and resources are worth devoting to a project?
Such a great question, and one I love diving into. So I would say for me, step one is usually what happens in my notebook. I'm a big believer in writing down your ideas, especially as they come to you. I don't know about you, but there are a lot of times when I'll have an idea and I'm like, oh, this idea is so brilliant. And then I won't write it down. Like I'm going to bed at night and I'm like, oh, I'll write it down in the morning. Like, this is so great. Of course, I'm going to remember this thought tomorrow. And then I wake up and I'm like, did I have an idea last night that I didn't write down? What was that? And it just like slips your mind. So I'm a big believer in writing those things down just to honor that idea coming into your orbit. And a lot of those ideas are ones that I end up just putting on the back burner right away. It's like, oh, I like that. It's probably not the best time. And I mark it as back burner in my journal. And I'll just leave it at that. And I usually revisit all of those ideas like every few months. I'll just kind of flip through the pages and see what I was thinking about and whether it fits in now. And sometimes I'm like, oh, I forgot about that. That's actually a really good idea and it can fit into this current project we're doing. So a lot of things for me start as a piece of writing. Sometimes I'll expand on it. Sometimes right away I'm like, okay, this isn't going to work out right now. So the next step for me would be feeling into what I think is the best next thing for me to do. And that's always a gut feeling for me. That's always an intuitive hit that this one thing is the thing I feel I really need to focus on. And sometimes it's more than one thing. Sometimes it's like 2 or 3 things that I feel are all really strong potentials for what's next. And in that case, I have this process that I like to use where I eat the decision in a meditation practice. So I sit down with these ideas and I basically pretend that I am eating it as a visual and just feeling into how it goes down and what kind of food it would be. And I actually learned this practice from a CEO who I can't remember the name. This was like years ago. I remember reading this and thinking, this is a brilliant idea. And it was a CEO interview. And it was so bizarre because he didn't seem like the kind of person who would even have a meditation practice. He was like a CEO of a really big company. And I was like, that is so good. So it's actually not my own process. I got it from someone else, but I wish I could credit him because I really don't know who he is. And sitting down and like eating the ideas, while it sounds a little strange, and I have this as a meditation on shetakesontheworld.com if you search your idea. And it really gives me a lot of clarity. And it's amazing how many times there's something that I think might be a really good idea and it doesn't go down right. It doesn't feel good in that practice. And that's usually when I know that it's just a little off, and intuitively it feels like maybe it's not the right time for that specific thing. So that's my own process. And then while that process might sound a little bit woo-woo and out there, I then, of course, will bring it to my CFO and we'll talk about it from a financial standpoint and what we might have to invest in bringing that idea to life. And if it makes sense for us, especially if it's something that involves a bigger risk, we look at all of those different factors. So going back to the original question about something like a book. So creating this planner was something that I wanted to do as a follow-up to the Conquer Kit, which is my business planning workbook. And a book takes so much time. The first one definitely takes the longest because it has the longest proposal and pitching phase. And I did have to put a lot of other ideas aside to make that happen, to work with my agent, to create that proposal, to even land the book deal. And then, of course, when you land the book deal, then you feel like you've done all of this work. And actually, the proposal took me longer, I think, to write than the first book did. And I'm not even joking. The proposal phase is like that's like a serious beast doing a proposal. So it did take away a lot from some of our other projects. And of course, books are not things that you're often going to make a whole lot of money off of. It definitely doesn't compare as a revenue stream to some of the other bigger projects and products that we sell. So it was a matter of me saying, okay, how much time am I willing to dedicate to this, with the knowing that this is going to take away from directly earning revenue in other areas of the business. And you just have to weigh that. And for me, I was able to see that in the long run, it would be really good to have the books because indirectly it would lead to more revenue through opportunities that would come from doing the books. So I ended up making that decision to focus on doing these 2 books in a 2-year period. I mean, these 2 books have come out within 12 months of each other. So it's been a whole lot of work to make that happen. And at the same time, I know that it's not about the short term. It really is about the longer term gains that can come from doing something like that. So then actually getting around to creating the book, I always work in sprints. So usually a sprint is 12 weeks and I'll do 4 sprints in a year. I'll take a week usually in between each one and have a bit of downtime or go on a short vacation or something. And I have found that sprinting process is what allows me to stay really laser focused on 1 or 2 big things. So when it's something like a book, earlier this year, Q1 is when I actually created the book. It was the only thing I could really do in Q1. I didn't have time for anything else. That was what I dedicated my time and energy and resources to, so that I could finish it in that block of time, hand it off to editing and the design team, and then I could go into the next sprint and into the next thing that I want to do. So that's sort of that's the whole process.
Love it.
And I think it's really important to have a reward at the end of every sprint. You've got to take that downtime. You can't, create a book and then go right into the next thing without taking a little bit of time to recharge. And it's not always even about the recharging. It's not that you're so exhausted that if you don't have that vacation, you're going to experience major burnout, but it's just good to take some time to reflect as well. And in my earlier days of business, I think that that's one of the biggest mistakes that I made, was never actually stopping to celebrate what I was achieving along the way. And because of that, I got into this mindset where I felt like I wasn't doing enough. I felt like I wasn't achieving enough, that I wasn't moving fast enough on things. And now that I actually take the time to stop and reflect on the previous 12 weeks, what I've been able to accomplish at the end of every year, taking a couple weeks of reflection and spending a lot of time journaling. And that's sort of where I'm at right now as we're at the end of a Q4, and having that time to just reflect on everything that's happened. It's totally shifted my mindset because I give myself a lot more credit and I'm able to see, okay, this led to that. And I feel like it helps you with future decision making as well.
I think so too.
So you've got to have that reward.
Yeah, I do. And so this has been an excellent conversation that I've loved. And I can't pass, this is like the perfect segue into my final question for you, because this is something that I like to get people to do. The 300 people I've got to interview at this point, I find that as entrepreneurs, it's this idea I'm working with calling the entrepreneurial gap, because I find that as entrepreneurs, as dreamers, we're always projecting our successes into the future, meaning that in Q2, when you hit that certain metric that you set, that's when you'll see yourself as successful. Or in 6 months, when you hit that other metric. Yet you and I both know that right before you accomplish that goal, you'll set 5 bigger ones into the future, which I agree, we have to do it. But I find that we end up living in this gap because, like walking towards the horizon, the further you walk, the further away it always gets. From the outside, Natalie, you look uber successful, but from the inside, I know that success is ahead of you, which is fine. But I would love it right now if you could. Just let's close that gap. Let's stop, turn around, look behind you like you've been doing, but tell us how you feel about your whole entrepreneurial journey up until today.
Such a big question. I love that. In this moment right now, I am very grateful for the journey. There have definitely been times where I would not have been able to say that, and to say that I'm actually really happy with where I am and everything that I've achieved. And I'm still pretty young and have a very long career ahead of me, hopefully. And I think one of the worst things I used to do was compare myself to other people who were further ahead, who were older than me and just had more time in business. And I don't do that anymore. I'm really in my own lane at this point and playing my own game. And I'm not worried about, I mean, I'm still very competitive. I'm an entrepreneur, but I'm not comparing myself to other people as much. So when I look back on that journey now, I love that Steve Jobs always said, you connect the dots by stopping and looking backwards and reflecting, and you see that all of these dots connect, even though at the time when you created that dot, when you did that thing, it doesn't always make sense, or you feel like you need to do something and it doesn't make sense. And it's in looking back that you can really connect those dots. And I'm a big believer in that. There were a lot of things that have happened that didn't always make sense, but you follow those intuitive hits. And I would say in the last couple years, especially, there's been so much growth. And I made a very difficult decision to immigrate to the US and to move my companies to the US. And moving companies across a border is like the worst process ever. And in that moment, I knew I had to do it. And I was like, oh, I can see myself in the future living there. And, it's all going to work out. But I put myself in an 18-month limbo where I was in a gap, where I was sort of in between these two countries and had so much paperwork to do. And it was such a distraction. And now that I'm here, I'm able to look back and say, that was totally worth it. And I think for most of the decisions that I've made that have been really difficult decisions and that have put me in situations that I knew were going to be so challenging and so crappy to go through at the time, they have always been worth it. They've always been worth it. And that's the one thing I can say in the moment that I'm in here right now, is that all of the challenges and all of those difficult times, they're really the things that shape you. They're the things that sometimes put you on a course correction. And that doesn't always make you happy, because as entrepreneurs, I think we like to think that we're always in control of everything, and we like to be in control. But those course corrections are also what often lead you to bigger and better things. And I would say that if my past 10 years as an entrepreneur has taught me anything, it's that there seems to be this way bigger plan for me than I've had for myself and that I've held for myself. And the more that I just surrender and allow and trust my intuition and let that guide me, the more I'm able to do even more than I ever imagined for myself.
Beautiful answer. Beautiful answer. I love it. So, Natalie, you've talked about how you sort of work in sprints within your life, within your business. It's how you wrote the book, Conquer Your Year. So Conquer Your Year is the ultimate planner to get more done, grow your business, and achieve your dreams. So not only is it how you wrote the book, but I believe it's how you're going to lay out somebody's year for them to accomplish more in 2017. Am I right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Excellent.
So I think, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to ask if you could tell us who the book is for specifically. So anybody out there who's listening fits that market can go and drop. It's like books like under $15 and includes like hundreds of dollars in bonuses. So it's a perfect book, but can you tell us who it's for?
For sure. So Conquer Your Year is the ultimate planner for entrepreneurs who run small businesses, and I would say more specifically like micro businesses. So if your company has over 10 employees, you might need a different planning system. If you have less than 10 employees or you are a solo entrepreneur, I think this is absolutely the perfect planner for you. And actually, I sent this to a friend, and she has around 25 employees now, and she's just loving it as well. And I was like, I don't know if it's going to work for you. So it's definitely geared towards entrepreneurs who need to stay really focused and want to have somewhat of a system in place for doing exactly that. So Conquer Your Year is structured into these sprints, like you were saying. And I think it's the best way for entrepreneurs to work. I know that the sprinting process has just totally shifted and transformed the way that I do business and how much I'm able to get done in a year. And I think the biggest mistake entrepreneurs make is that we're really good at the dreaming part. We're really good at sitting down at the beginning of a new year and dreaming up these big goals and all these things that we want to achieve. But it's really hard to actually buckle down and make all of those things happen. And this is where I think working in sprints comes in really handy. So at the beginning of a sprint, you are identifying those one or two big goals or milestones that you're working toward. And look, not every goal is created equally. You know, sometimes a goal will take you 2 full sprints to get done. Sometimes you're working on a massive goal that will take you 3 or 4 sprints and 3 or 4 quarters to actually get done, focusing on that one thing pretty much full time. So it depends on what the goal is, but I'm typically doing 1 or 2 big things in a quarter. And the real knowns in our businesses are often a few months ahead of us. If I think back a year ago, there are things happening right now that were not even on my radar at the time. There was a huge opportunity that came into my orbit just a couple months ago that I couldn't have planned for before. So it's important to have a little bit of space, but I think those knowns in our business are the next 3 months. So doing a brain dump of all the tasks associated with those goals is so important. And I think something not enough entrepreneurs do. So you've got to have the goal, and then you have to break it down into those tasks. And you should always have the next 3 months fully scheduled in a system like Asana. And this is all part of the planner. So it prompts you to do this brain dump and to set these goals. I'm also a big believer in setting personal goals around your relationships, around giving back, around your overall health and well-being, around creating a new habit. So every day there's a little checkbox for you to mark off that you have maintained that habit that you set for the month or for the quarter. And I'm always working on retraining my brain to do different things. So one of the big things that I've tried to give up recently, and I say try because it's still a work in progress, is just not checking my phone at all in the morning, like not going online, just staying totally out of my inbox. And that's hard. I mean, for a long time, it's the first thing I would do. Alarm goes off. I pick up my phone and I look at emails that came in and start looking at the news and things like that. And that's not how I want to start my day. So that's been a hard habit to shift. But with this planner, you are able to create new habits. And then everything is broken down day to day and week to week as well, with weekly space for managing projects and for reflection. And for me, I love having a paper planner. I still do all of my scheduling in Google Calendar. I love my Google Calendar for scheduling. And in this planner, you're not going to find daily layouts of, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. where you can enter all of your different tasks and appointments. It's not that kind of planner. It's focused on the priorities that are actually going to drive your goals forward and help you to bring those big ideas to life.
I love it. I love it. And I haven't had a chance to see the book yet. I'm going to order it because
I'll send you a copy.
I'm a huge advocate of this is how I like to work, is in these sprints of a few months, because it allows us to focus and really get a lot more done. But because this conversation has been so much fun, and it's been a while since I've done this, I also want to offer 5 Conquer Your Year, the ultimate planner, to 5 listeners.
Amazing.
So the first 5 people to email me, John at Hack the Entrepreneur, email me and I'll tell you if you're one of the 5 still, and then I'll get your address and I'll send this to you. Hopefully you'll get it in time for Christmas, but you'll definitely get it in time for the new year. And you can work with Natalie and she'll send you on your way throughout the new year.
Incredible. Thank you, John.
Awesome. So this has been absolutely a blast, Natalie. ConquerYourYear.com is the website for the book, correct?
Yes, that's right.
Excellent. SheTakesOnTheWorld.com is the main business. I'll link to both of those in the show notes, as well as SoulSeconds.com. I'll link back to Dave Asprey from Bulletproof as well. Natalie's on Twitter. She talked about it a lot. Go head over there and ask her any questions to follow up if you would like, or just say hi, as well as the Eat Your Idea article. I'll track that down as well on She Takes on the World. So all of that will be there for you at hacktheentrepreneur.com for when you're done working out, walking, jogging, whatever it is you're doing right now, as well as a link to the book. And then email me. First 5 people get a free copy to send you into 2017. Natalie, once again, thank you so much for stopping by. Thank you so much for sharing so openly. And please just keep doing what you're doing, because it's awesome and inspiring to watch.
Thank you, John. And likewise, love the podcast and love talking to you today. So thanks so much.
Natalie, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for sharing so much. I truly do appreciate it. You guys didn't get to hear out there, but before this call, Natalie actually was born and raised not far from where I live in Toronto. And since her business has taken off, she's emigrated down to the United States, where it's warm. She was calling me from California, I believe. And it's Canada, so it's freezing cold up here. So she's kind of rubbing it in a little bit with the snow and stuff. But, you guys didn't get to hear that, so I won't talk about that. But besides that part of the conversation, the part that you heard, it was cool. I really dug talking to her about sort of the breaking down, her 4-step process for deciding on projects, and then getting to dive into her book a bit, and then also getting to offer those 5 books to you. I think that's pretty cool. Make sure, drop me an email. Maybe you'll be one of those lucky guests to get one of those books. But this is the point in the show where, like always, I go back and I listen as you do. I listen as sort of a third party to the conversation to see what I can sort of see and see what I might have missed. So I did that. I went back. Then I went back again. And then I went back one more time through the conversation. That third time that I went through the conversation with Natalie, there was something I had missed all this time, but became very, very, very clear to me. It was that one thing. Did you get it? Did you hear it? Let's do it. Let's find the hack.
I was in the right place at the right time. And I had this vision for this blog, and I started it like the same day. I didn't wait. I didn't wait until I had the perfect looking blog. I didn't wait until I had it professionally designed. I just went on to Blogger and started this blog and wrote a post all in one day. You know, I believe in the power of now, and I'm still that way today.
And that's the hack. Natalie. This is awesome. I like this. I like this for two reasons. So the first section where she talks about how she was lucky. She was in the right time at the right place. And sure, you can give her that if you wish, the luck, but the luck was created by herself and by her action. Luck doesn't just come to you unless you put yourself in the place of it. So there's that. But then this idea of having a vision all in the same day, just taking action, or as she calls it, the power of now. She could have still been thinking about this 6 years or 7 years later, whatever it is at this point. And none of this would have happened. She accidentally started this business by just taking action on that day on a Blogger site. I don't even know if you remember Blogger. Blogger was, I believe, created by one of the people who ended up creating Twitter later. And it was just a platform to just type words onto the internet. And rather than even hesitating and overthinking, like, well, maybe I should create my own site. Maybe I should do this, or maybe I should do it somewhere else on a different platform. She just did it, rolled with it, and it eventually accidentally turned into a business, which is now this massive media company. The power of now. I love it. Thank you, Natalie. All right. That was a lot of fun. I am giving away 5 copies of her new book, because I want you to conquer your year in 2017. John at hacktheentrepreneur.com. First 5 people to email me will get a copy. Again, hopefully before Christmas. We'll see how the mail works, but I'll get it to you as soon as I can. And yeah, it'll be just, come on. And if you don't happen to get it, I would suggest grabbing a copy. I believe it's like $11 on Amazon right now, or $12 only. And it includes some extra stuff if you sign up through her site, which is conqueryouryear.com. So I'll put all that on Hack the Entrepreneur for you. Conqueryouryear.com is the website. She takes on The World is the Business, if you want to check it out, as well as Soul Seconds. That's what we talked about, these 60-second meditations. If that helps you, that helps you. Lots of people on here talk about meditation, and I wish I could validate it myself, but it's been years since I've meditated. But I should get back to it. Maybe that's something for 2017. So, yeah, we'll see. All right, it was fun. If you get a chance, drop me that email. You might be the 5th or the one of the 5, and I'll get that book out to you as soon as possible. Anyways, until next time, please keep hacking the entrepreneur.